Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs or at Justin Bizzarro. You can also find us on Spotify or wherever else you grow yourself through podcasts. I have a very special guest with us. I'm going to introduce him as Alex, but I'm going to let him introduce his company, his background, everything like that. I met him at the Evolve event that we just talked to Matt about in a couple podcasts ago, voiced by Matt, that Angela runs. And Angela is I'm recording with her tomorrow, but it'll be a few episodes behind since I'm recording 3 to 4 a day right now, stocking on the front side. But Alex is a very, very special, knowledgeable person. And if I try to explain the depth that he does or his company or any of that, I would never do it justice. So I'm going to let Alex talk a little bit and we're going to intervene. But first, Alex, let's talk about your journey a little bit from little Alex to big Alex to entrepreneur Alex. So like sort of talk to me about like what happened there and how you ended up running a very successful business and a business that's very unique in your industry.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. It's actually been a minute since I've been a guest on a podcast. I pulled off of almost all of them. I think I did 2 over 2023 or 2024 rather. And during 2023, I was hitting like 2 or 3 guest spots a week. So it's good to be back in this, and I'm super jazzed that I kind of get to kick off 2025 with you and hopefully provide some good insight into your audience and give them some good nuggets to think about. But my name is Alex Vonderhaar. I am the CEO and founder of a neuromarketing agency called Hidden Falls Media. And when I say neuromarketing, most people's heads kind of shake back and their eyes glaze over a little bit like, what the hell is that? So neuromarketing is essentially we take neuroscience research on why your customers are buying what they're buying, and we help bring that almost like Robin Hood. We take from the rich and bring it down to the small and scaling businesses and help them implement what Fortune 100 and 500 companies have been doing for the last 10 to 15 years at a very high level. And we help bring that down to scaling businesses so they can live out their American dream, so they can, essentially rise in the American economy and become a strong dominant force. So it's really cool. We get to help businesses that are anything from B2B security and IT infrastructure companies down to like bass fishing and Jeep construction companies and mod companies. And, we've been behind some of the biggest US movements over the last 2 or 3 years. We were the company behind all the FJB shirts when Let's Go Brandon happened down after the NASCAR event. We were the marketing force behind that whole movement. So it's really been kind of cool to see how this has really progressed over the last 6 years. But you kind of wanted to get into little Alex to big Alex, which is funny because I'm 6'5". So where do you want to start with that?
Yeah, let's talk about, upbringing, when you decided you wanted to be an entrepreneur, sort of the trajectory of life that led you to where you are, because I think there are some unique parts, at least that I know about your story, that have led you exactly to where you are. Changes in life, spirituality maybe, but also the decision to be an entrepreneur. And I don't think your intention was to be in marketing initially.
No, it wasn't.
So yeah, let's talk about that.
Looking back super, super young, I was a really nerdy kid that was super introverted and obsessed with magic, like David Blaine, David Copperfield, Chris Angel. I was raking yards, mowing, shoveling snow, and I was the one out of my friend group every time we had a snow day to say, hey, let's go shovel driveways for $20 a driveway. So that way I could get money and they could too, and we would all split it. But I would take my money and buy it on like magic courses and magic sets. So I think kind of looking back, I've always been influenced or aware of psychology and always kind of interested in that, but I didn't know it as psychology at, the age of 7 or 10. I knew it as, hey, I can trick and fool people and bring a sense of wonder, right? And that's kind of where I think a little bit of that started. And then through high school, I got into playing guitar and arts and started smoking weed and kind of doing the rebel thing that boys do at 18, right? Not necessarily all positive, but really kind of exploring more of that creative side. And I had a full ride scholarship to go be a graphic designer. initially. And after talking with my parents and my grandparents, they were like, man, like you're so much smarter than just being a graphic designer somewhere. That's just a skill that you can pick up along the way. If you're going to go to school, why don't you go to school for something that's really going to challenge you and not take the easy route just because a college is willing to pay for you to go there. So I said, okay, I took the challenge, and like every young 18-year-old that's young, dumb, and full of cum, we try to push back as hard as we can, right? So I chose the hardest science major that I could get into, which was neuroscience. And I actually fell in love with it. I fell in love with psychology really deeply, how the mind works, what's going on at different levels, and how can we grow our mind and really kind of excel in different things that we want to do. So down that path, I found I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. After going down that path, it was really challenging. I was engaged. I was doing really well in my classes for it. And then right towards the end of that journey, right before, you go and kind of start into the more medical procedural side, I was hit with an unknown airborne allergy that caused me to have some myocarditis. So that's where the myocardium inside of your heart gets a lot of inflammation, and it essentially causes really bad things to happen. Mine resulted in surgery and for my heart to stop beating for about 90 seconds. And for anybody in the medical field or knows something about this, you have about a 5% chance of surviving an attack like that. So I was one of the rare ones, super lucky. I attribute a lot of it to the fact that at that point in time, when I graduated high school, I was 300 plus pounds. And at that point in time, I had been running and exercising and getting into shape, and I was down to about 210, 215. And I attribute a lot of that recovery and bounce back to the physical shape that I was in at that time and being able to really have that body heal itself. So after that, I talked with my advisors and kind of went through that experience, and they were like, hey man, like the path of surgery is probably not going to be for you. You're going to have a really, really difficult time getting the insurance that you need, because what medical insurance company is going to want to insure a surgeon that has had major heart issues and major health issues. It's just not going to be in the cards for you. And that was a big paradigm shift for me at the time, because that's what the last 5.5 years of my life had been, which was preparing for this, getting involved, learning everything I needed to learn, which didn't need to be a waste by any means, but it came at a moment where I had to pivot. So I was kind of searching for meaning during that entire process. Why did this happen? I was searching for answers, and how could I recreate that near-death experience without killing myself again? So I started to try psychedelics. I was going in and eventually found flotation therapy. I'd heard about it through Joe Rogan, and I was really kind of interested in his experiences and what he had said about it. So I decided to try it for my own. And after my first float, I came back and said, holy crap, I need more of that. So I got to know the owner of the place, and we essentially said, hey, you can float as much as you want, but I'm going to need you to work here. We're about 3 months into the process of actually opening this business and having it be on its feet. And we need good workers, and you seem smart and capable, so why not, right? So I started working there, and I got into floating. I did floating every day for probably 3.5 years. I floated a minimum 45 to 60 minutes. And at maximum, I was doing overnight floats where I would be in there for 7 or 8 hours. And that really helped kind of formulate a lot of the way that I think and how I process information. And even now, it's still an amazing tool to be able to use. So I worked there for about 2 years, and we were able to turn it from a failing company. When he hired me, I didn't know that they were really far in debt. And through working there, I was able to learn marketing and sales and got really good at it. And when I was studying marketing, we were able to really see, hey, there's all this psychology, there's all this neuroscience research around marketing. Why isn't anybody using it? So we started to implement it into our websites, into our ads, into even our building layout, integrating sensory-based marketing like scents, using diffusers into the facility. And we started to notice our sales go up. And within about 18 months, we took them from about 200,000 in debt up to 2.2 million in reoccurring revenue sales. And that was through subscriptions, memberships, just different packages and stuff like that. And in that process, we opened up a second location. I was managing about 11 staff members, all under the age of 20. And I was maybe 22, 23 at the time. And I was making $8.25 an hour, still living in my mom's basement, while I'm watching the CEO of this company that I just helped build start buying his mom and his dad, himself, all these nice cars, all these nice trips and experiences. And that was kind of my awakening of like, man, I've got a really good skill here that I can take and leverage on my own. So we parted ways. It wasn't necessarily a clean parting, but we parted ways, and I didn't have any money saved up. You can't really save money making 8.25 an hour. So I took a door-to-door sales job because they were paying really well. The commission on it was amazing. I saved up about 50 grand initially to start the business. We jump started it. And as of January 1st of 2018, we started Hidden Falls Media. And here we are on January 14th of 2025, and we're kicking ass, taking names, and excited for the future. So that's kind of the long and the short, without going into way too many details, of how I got from young Alex to where we are today, now happily engaged and getting ready to get married in about 110 days.
Talk to me about building a company. You kind of built it with someone else, so you had some experience there, but now you're building it on your own. Employees, training them, trying to get them to see the vision, trying to understand a business model that is atypical at that point, especially maybe a little bit more now, maybe something that people have done before since there's lots of research on it, but not utilized properly. How do you sell that? One, to a customer. Two, how do you build a company around it? And three, how do you get your employees to believe in something that they're not going to quite understand, even if the customers, and especially if a customer doesn't understand, how do you train them to understand it so the customer understands it?
Yeah, it's kind of, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So, and that's exactly how we approach it. You kind of hinted earlier that, there's a wealth of information between the years over here. And I don't say that to boast or brag, but I've studied. I've done nothing but study and research and be a student of the field for the last almost 10 years. So in that process, I really have acquired a lot of information, and to a certain degree, I've forgotten more than I actually remember. So a lot of the time I have to kind of put myself into their frame of reference of like, if I only understood one thing about this topic, what would be that hook, something that's interesting that would get them intrigued enough to want to learn more. And that's really how I approach it. Everybody's kind of different with what they want to hear from that side. And after kind of, a few minutes of conversation, I can pull one of my 30 stories or one of my, few tricks out of the bag and say, here's a real life example, right? If I see an Amazon package, outside their doorstep or at their reception desk, I can talk a little bit about how Amazon uses neuromarketing and their business model. Or, if I see that they're just starting out, I can't really dive heavily into the neuromarketing techniques as much because we have to focus on building a good foundation. So how do we talk about, user experience, word of mouth marketing, and how that translates into neuromarketing? So we really try to kind of piece where they're at and pull that information to where they currently are. And then same with my employees when they first come on. A lot of them get really excited because we have a strong mission. We have a very strong vision. Our core values are impeccable, and every team member on our team lives and breathes them. Otherwise, they just simply don't last in our organization. So as we've built this and as we've built that culture around our employees and our client list, they start to see and feel that it's different, that it's not just a transactional relationship, but that they're truly on board with something great, and that we really are making history with what we're doing and how this is moving. There's 5 other agencies in the world that do what we do, and the 4 other ones are exclusively focused on the research side. They don't actually apply it. All they do is gather the research for their clients and then say, here you go do it. We don't specialize in actually executing. So, we really get to be that maverick that's really paving the way forward. And it is a unique experience. We've taken a lot of different business models and different operating systems from different fields and have had to have a lot of trial and error. They've been expensive. They've cost us clients at times. They've cost us really good team members at times. But ultimately, we kind of knew the risk going in and saying, hey, this is something new. We're going to fail a lot. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. But it's ultimately the decision that you just can't quit. So that's really been the motto is, that every day somebody else is, I'm going to rephrase that a little bit. Today is the day that somebody else decided to quit and we make the conscious decision not to. And that's really kind of that motto of how we've pulled all of these things together, is just by saying somebody else is going to tap out. And today's just not our day. We got one more day on us.
I'm going to emphasize something here. A lot of people a lot of humans, maybe not everyone. I'm sure I have employees that have worked for me or people that that hate my guts or think I'm a moron. Maybe there's some truth in it during that time, the decision I made for sure, or the thing they're basing it off of. But what I will say is that where I've lacked in intelligence or education or background or leverage or money, I've made up with what I could do, reading, math, exercise, anything that that I can do basically for free. And books, you don't have to order them on Amazon. Library is great. The last 2 years, just because of rebuilding my life and crazy, weird financial stresses and life up and down, like the library card became a big deal. I spent a lot of time in Lone Tree outside Denver at the library there, just doing stuff. That's one. Number two is where I've lacked in those areas, even the thing that usually makes a difference between me and others, even when it was sports or podcasts or business or any type of service, is the ability to outlive the other person, to outwork, to get back up every time, because you're going to get knocked down. But there's so many people that do tap out. So if you can stay profitable, and here's part of the weight, I think so many people want to grow their business, so they shoot their load of money into marketing and they put it all up front and they don't think about it strategically. But at the same time, strategically, you have to be thinking that I'm marketing and advertising. I need to spend money there, a good chunk. But at the same time, I need to ensure my longevity so I outlive my competitor or anyone who thinks they might be like me, or anyone who wants to imitate me or my business or whatever. That's what Alex is getting there. That's an important thing that I think we need to anchor for anyone out there. The food truck, there's thousands of them. I guarantee you, just stay put. If you're at the beginning, you will see 7 to 9 years down the road, the people around you in the food truck game are different. There might be a few core ones that are the same, but the reason is they did their marketing well. They also knew how to run their business well enough for longevity. So as other people tapped out, they were able to grab those market shares or steal the market share by performing their business better. Both are good options and good strategies and able to be employed at the same time.
Absolutely.
Or deployed at the same time. So Alex, let's talk about I don't know how to ask it, but I'm going to ask it in a way that sort of the audience could probably relate to more. I think everyone gets a little bit confused on, and this is how I'm going to lead into deeper questions. What level of marketing belongs at the business? What level of marketing belongs outsourced? And what level of marketing belongs in what I will call an enhanced place? Okay, there's common marketing. Oh, there's my billboard over there. That's a sign. Obviously, it's done a certain way. Then there's enhanced, which we're talking about all that actually could filter down into the two other pieces I talked about. Not only could it be enhanced for the outside world, but it could be enhanced for the inside world. And I want to get into core values in a second. But talk to me a little bit about, if you're working with a client, at what point is it the client's responsibility to do some of it where you can't do it? Or how does all of that work as your business as an outsider? How do you work with your clients? How do you get them to take ownership in what they're doing? Because without ownership from the business, as we've discussed, you can't actually do any marketing no matter how much you've been paid. So
very true. So let's break this down, because I don't think I've actually ever been asked this, but we have a lot of internal conversation on our leadership team about this. So it's a really good question for a podcast. The first thing I'll say, which is the quick and easy chunk, you should never outsource your social media to a agency. The reason being is that naturally, they're not going to have your tone of voice. They're not going to be with you every day to be able to capture content. That doesn't mean you can't outsource editing and publishing, but as far as content creation and being unique and creative, there's strategies out there that are really simple to follow, right? You find out what value you can bring to the marketplace and how can you creatively express that over and over in different ways. So I would never outsource that. Where I would really lean on a marketing agency or an advertising agency's expertise is when you're actually ready to hit the throttle. So what we found is that if you're at less than $40,000 to $50,000 a month, which may seem like a really big number for some people. It's really not best to spend money on a lot of ads, because typically at that point you don't have your brand message dialed in yet, which is something a marketing agency can help with, but you don't need them on like a monthly retainer to do things for you. That would be like a one-time consultation where they're helping you kind of develop this brand voice and get your website set up and do like those more foundational tasks. Ultimately, though, when you're at that $40,000 to $50,000 a month level, that's when you can really start to say exactly what you were talking about earlier, Justin. This person over here, this company is taking more market share than what we're comfortable with, right? We want to grow by 15 or 20%. Well, if you're in a local market, that might be a really big number, and that might be a really expensive hurdle to overcome initially. So what are the best and most economic ways for us to do that? And your agency has to be able to see and pivot and kind of know the tools to be able to get you there. Is it SEO? Is it ad buying? Is it, a big promotional campaign in your local area that's, you're doing a really cool event? There's different ways that you can approach solving that problem based on budgets. The other thing, once you have around that monthly revenue to be able to start to do, is pocket and squirrel away 10 to 15% of your top line sales and reinvest that into advertising and marketing consistently. Having the consistency behind this, not just in your actions, but being present in the marketplace, is a massive strategic advantage that most business owners overlook. They'll go on, off, start, stop with all their campaigns all the time. And it's mostly because they'll come and say, well, we're not seeing the ROI yet, or we're not seeing, a good enough ROAS, return on ad spend yet. And there might be some fault on the marketer or advertiser, but more often than not, it's just you're early into a new market that your brand's not really been exposed to yet. That audience has no idea who you are. You have zero trust or, brand equity built up inside of this group of people. And now you're asking them to buy from you. And it doesn't really work that way. It's the same as if I came and knocked on your door cold when you guys are at the house enjoying dinner and saying, hey, do you want to buy this vacuum? It's a lot harder of a approach and a warm welcome than if we're in the market for a while. People see our vans driving around the street. People see us at the local coffee shop, right? They're seeing us all over the place to where they've at least heard of us and they're a little bit more warm and welcome to hearing our message. So that's really where social at that beginning stage can really play in, or getting creative around newsletter creations, or getting, putting up your first billboard. It may not be ROI positive on the first time, but you can at least start integrating these things in chunks to be able to get there. But once you're at that 40 to 50K mark every month, you can put away, 600, 800, $1,000 to be able to start to reinvest that into marketing month over month.
I love it. Let's talk about let's go back. Let's talk about core values, your vision and mission statements. Talk to me what those are, what the core values are. Talk to me a little bit about why and how you constructed all of them.
Yeah. Each one of them came from hard learning lessons inside of my life. There's 12 of them total. Some people on my team think that's way too many. Some of my business friends that run EOS tell me that's way too many, but I think they're just right, because while we could have boiled them down, each one of them kind of holds a special place inside. And it's mostly reminders of myself. Like, there's times where I've not been humble and it's come back to bite me in the ass. So be humble is one of our core values. I truly believe that being a lifelong student is something that every one of us should be pursuing daily, right? We need to be learning. Our brains love good quality information coming into them so they can solve really hard puzzles while we're sleeping or while we're in the shower, right? When that great idea comes from you, it didn't just come out of nowhere. Your brain's been processing that information for a while, and now you're at that solution. And if we're not constantly learning and bringing in that good information, it's hard to find those. Hard discipline. I didn't have discipline at different points in my life, and it caused serious health issues, right? Or it caused me to sleep on certain metrics that I needed to be paying attention to, but I didn't have the discipline to go in and financially look at these metrics every day, right? Like there's so many within there that it would be a 5-hour conversation just on core values. But we have 12 of them. They're baked around all of my learning mistakes throughout my life, and they're pretty unanimous across other people's lives that I've talked to as well. Our mission, though, is really unique and
Yeah,
different.
hold on one second. I want to talk about that. Sorry.
Yeah.
The core value thing, I have 12 also. Gosh, I find that there's a thing, for me, it's deeper psychologically. And I agree. I think we need to cover more. I'm the same, and I understand everyone else's argument because I think I probably had the same discussions with a lot of the same people around this. But the main thing is that for me, I can break it down better. I can break it into monthly core values. There's a lot of ways around by which the way I ingrain it into the businesses now. I've had experience trying it in other ones, obviously, and doing years of this, decades of trying to integrate core values and cultures into businesses. But one of the ways I find it easier is in that way is it scalable operations. I can have a be humble person of the month. Okay, I have 12 of them. Now I have a core value of every month. Now I have goals. Now I tie bonuses to them. Now I tie performance to them. Team things. Okay, that this week, whatever team it shows humility, that we know about, that runs through that anyone talks about, especially as your company gets bigger and bigger and bigger, having these matrix based on core values and being able to do it is important to grow into a 6,000 person company. It's important.
Exactly.
Because what you don't know is that everything that you do, including the core values, they have to be integrated at every level. And when people start getting creative and you need to trust them to come up with the human resource thing of the month or the picnic of the month, grounding it in some way every month is just a way, but also the variation is important. So I find that works. I also in food seasonality and recipes and menus. Very important, give not only your employees, but your customers variation. So I just want to emphasize, go ahead on to the mission and vision. Sorry to interrupt you, Alex.
No, I think you're 100% spot on. There's also things with numbers that kind of tickle my brain in different ways. And the number 12 has always kind of been there. So I like that too. But so my vision and my ability as a leader has really evolved in the last 3 months. I got challenged by one of my mentors and real fast on mentorship. I believe in having two mentors. I think you should have one that's in your industry that has done what you were looking to do to some degree. So like for me, there's not really a neuromarketing agency industry leader, but there's people that I know and trust at a really deep level who have built multi-nine-figure advertising and marketing firms. So I've hired them to be my mentor because they understand the operational excellence. They understand the pitfalls that are coming. And to be able to get that feedback and see, whether it's reading through P&Ls together or whether it's looking at my strategy or what came from one of our last meetings, which was, dude, you got to get your vision bigger because you're going to start losing people if your vision does not continue to push and grow. And I'd been so stuck in operations for the last year and a half that I wasn't truly in that visionary seat to the percentage out of my time that I needed to be. So there's different things we can get into around that, but the vision of the company and where we're going is that we are going to impact 1 million small businesses that want to scale and want to live out the American dream, and primarily doing that through growing those entrepreneurs. While our business model is through marketing and advertising, what we're really teaching them is the mindset of how to think at a higher level and to be what I call a Renaissance CEO. A Renaissance man is a older term, and it's not for men or women, it's for both. It's the term of the collective human, which is that throughout history, we've always regarded people like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, even Alfred Nobel was vast knowledge. Albert Einstein, even Harry Houdini was considered to be a Renaissance man and was potentially working for the CIA as a spy, right? Like all these great influential people throughout history were multifaceted. They could be artists, they could be engineers, they could be chemists, they could be poets, and they had all these different skills that they had developed. But what really made their magic shine, so to speak, was that they figured out how to interweave all these things together and really pull the best and the brightest ideas from each interdiscipline and really combine them together. And that's really where our vision and mission is to help these entrepreneurs see you can't be a strong entrepreneur if all you're good at is math. yes, we need to lean into our strengths, but how can you integrate math, or how can you integrate your people skills with all these different elements that have to come together to get this machine to run perfectly? Because running a business is extremely difficult. It requires you to wear all the hats. And in order to do that, you have to be able to process a lot of information in a really short amount of time. And the best way to do that is through being a leader, by being a student of your craft, but also getting creative inputs from other ways. Because if all we're seeing is that one narrow focus, we're never going to get that breadth that we need to see wide enough to see how did other people solve these problems. Maybe they weren't necessarily in a food space. Maybe they solved this problem in a financial services space, but the problem was still the same. The outcome is what we're looking for. Why does it matter that that industry is different than mine, or that field of knowledge is different from mine? So that's really what we're after, is to impact those people at that level and to be able to change the American culture to really push towards excellence in all of these different knowledge fields.
Yeah, I want to talk about a couple things. The one is the mentor thing. I just actually had this, our coach, mentor, whatever. I just had a conversation the other day with an individual, very talented human. He has a lot of people coming at him for mentors and coaching and whatever. And he asked me a question. He asked me, how much should he charge? And then everyone's going to lose their mind on me a little bit. And I asked him, well, what's the quality that you want to coach and mentor? He says, I want to be available to them. They have the resources for me to be available to them. He's like, how much? I'm like 5 to 10% of their income. And he looked at me like I was crazy. If you're really going to get the weight out of someone, and you want someone to truly invest in you, it's more than just a dollar deal.
Yep.
If you want to do real coaching, real mentor, and learn from the best, and I'm investing in you, I'm going to make me a part of the upside too. That's not greed. That just means that it equals a greater relationship for everyone. That's why managers and agents in Hollywood do it this way. As I've read my contracts and I go into these new ventures, and I have a manager and I have an agent, and they take a percentage of everything I make inside the show business world and entertainment. The reason they do it, and the reason it makes so much sense to me on both sides, is because one is managing what is being brought in that I turn into something that then needs to be managed, and I don't have to do it. The other one is my salesperson who's going out there and finding me the opportunities, speaking engagements, whatever, and then he's getting it. Well, both values go up. So if they were only getting $500 an hour and I was only really using them 3 hours, neither one of us are really benefiting or being able to help the other person truly. Are we helping each other? Does time matter? Yes. But when we're truly invested in each other and we keep the group small, when we're coaching and consulting, but it's a heavyweight game, meaning our weight in gold, it's way better. And I've had to learn this myself. I've had to tweak the way I do things with my circle and my advisors and the people that I need. I've had to make it not only about building long-term relationships, but as I built that trust, it has to become a little bit of a different game. And I'm sorry, that's my philosophy. Anyone can change it any way they want. But I'm telling you, you're willing to give 5 to 10% of your income to a hobby, to golf, to soccer, to whatever you're doing, maybe your car. The distance you will go by taking that money and maybe living a little bit more humbly, or having your family live humbly, and what you will be able to give them in 18 months by doing this type of investment in a mentor or a coach. Great. There's a lot of free ones out there. I agree. But I think there has to be skin in the game for both parties for it to truly work on a business level. On a spiritual level, even I find it works for periods of time on the spiritual base of give and take. But over time, the people that pay, or the priorities of the family, or the priorities of God, will always take over someone who's not in the relationship, and it's a give or take relationship, just because those tend to fall in the bottom of the priorities. So if you want true coaching, true mentoring, people ask me, that's my opinion. Sorry. I know people are like, oh, are you kidding me? Someone is literally teaching you their business. You want to know their secret sauce? Spend money and spend time with them more than an hour or two every week. Seriously, that's what it takes. And it takes investment. You're going to have to find time and money to do it. Sorry. I know that was a big thing for me. I couldn't get over how much money I was truly spending sometimes on mentors, but it was now, as I've lived it in sort of the harder years, I built in that discipline into my personality. So I didn't hesitate to cut everything else out, meaning living any way I needed to make sure I was still growing in that way. I talked about the library card. So that was one of the things, like, how do I minimize but not lose the mentors that I need to grow and that I need to pay for? Because the highest quality ones, they're the hardest to get to. It requires this. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to get with me over time. You want to work with me. You want me to grow. You want me to teach you everything. 24 years, a commissary, building recipes, scaling them, breaking down things, international logistics. It costs more. My time is worth more. But if you have me put skin in the game, now we're talking something different. Now we can leverage each other. And it's almost the more you're worth, the more I'm worth, which is not about greed. I grow people for free and spiritually and help them. But in this case, if you want to truly be an entrepreneur or grow or build a multi-dollar business, by multi-dollars, I mean 8 to 9 figures, it takes spending money to do it. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, we actually don't make that step because we don't have someone to guide us through these weird obstacles that we mentally put in front of ourselves. Oh, I'm not ready for that yet. Oh, I don't think I'm good enough for that yet. Oh my gosh, I'm spending too much money. I'm not spending enough money. Whatever it is, there has to be someone who's sort of been there before you that can help guide you and also give you caution. And it's worth the money.
I think one of the things you hit on is that you're willing to make yourself uncomfortable a little bit financially too, which is a huge motivating factor, right? If I know that I'm going to spend $100,000 this year on mentorship that I could have been spending somewhere else, I'm going to hustle a little bit harder. I've got a little bit more pep in my step to make those sales calls or to go that extra mile around the tasks that I know have to get done because I'm putting a lot of money on the line to make that happen.
I agree 100%. Let's talk about the two. You talked about we got into one inside, one outside the industry. I agree 100%. It's interesting. There's a lot of individuals that I've talked to that are in my spiritual life and seminary life or people I've connected to there. We talk a lot about having both it's a coach and a mentor and differentiating one being more of someone like a mentor, someone who's going to lead you through life. A coach is someone who's a temporary thing that they touch upon that for a period of time. But if you want to mentor someone who's going to invest in you in life, there are individuals who do it for free or invest in humans for free. It's very hard to get to those individuals, but there's a lot of individuals that are willing to benefit their legacy or give away all the hard and pain they did. They suffered. It takes suffering to be an entrepreneur. Let me tell you why. And many people don't know. The individual who normally, you work a 40-hour week, okay? I'm going to just emphasize this for everyone. I work an 80 to 100-hour week right now. I record 3 to 4 episodes 4 times a day. I'm preparing a TV show. That takes some of my day. I also do hotel work and consulting. I also do some other things around food and beverage and coaching and mentoring. So I have 4 things, but I manage it through my day. And as an entrepreneur, I still have time for family. I still do. I wish I had more. Yes, of course. But the difference is by the time I'm 40, if I started when I was 30 and I've worked 100 hours, I've done an extra week and a half of work and learning in my craft than you have in the corporate world. And it's the same with mentorship. If you want that same compounding effect, it takes time and money and investment and sacrifice and suffering. And so why does it cost so much money then to sell something? Because by the time we're 50 years old, we've worked how much more compounding experience, compounding exposure, and compounding education as an entrepreneur than the person that quits their day at 5:30. There's a difference. And it's not fair, I guess, but the truth is, what's fair? That you're saying, wow, I can charge all this money and how unfair it is? Or is it unfair that I had to take 24 years away from my family, lost a marriage and how many relationships because I chose my employees and the people that work for me over everyone else always? So it varies. And I'm not saying one's worse. I chose my life. Another person chose that life. But what I am saying is the value of the output of the person that's charging our mentor. You want to know how much time they've spent in business. Are they a corporate person? Are they a 9 to 5er? Or have they lived a life where they have a lifetime, truly maybe even 2.5 lifetimes full of knowledge that they can pass on to you? So my argument or my discussion is twofold. One, why they're worth the money, and two, why they're so valuable, and what you need to seek in the ones that really matter.
I could not agree more. I've been doing a lot of consulting over the last 3.5 years, and it's what I get some of my best joys out of is being that temporary coach, as you put them, and not that life mentor for them. And it's funny because almost all of the people that I'm mentoring through this or consulting in this process are much older than me, and they're just maybe they're like 7, 8, 10 years into business, but they're living the mentality of 9 to 5, and that they created a job for themselves essentially. And one of the best comments or questions that I almost always get is, man, you only have like 10 gray hairs on your head. How are you going to outsmart, outplay, or outlast the game when I've got all this season behind me? And it's almost unanimously the conversation of, I promise that you've had your business longer than I have had mine, and that you've probably seen a little bit more. But I promise you, you have not studied or you have not implemented to the degree that I have in the last 6 years, because I'm right there with you. It's 80 to 100-hour weeks for the last 6 years straight, with maybe 3 or 4 small vacations sprinkled in. And I don't have kids. So it's just me and my fiance. So we get to grind every single day and work on getting better, and seeing 40, 50, 60 different industries and having multiple clients inside of each one of those industries. My breadth of knowledge is just going to run laps around you. Sorry, it is what it is. And I think when you start to position your life experience that way as an entrepreneur, you really realize how blessed and fortunate you are to see all this information that the rest of the world really doesn't see. They see the flashy cars, they see the houses, they see the lifestyle that they are envious of, but they also don't see the other side, which is starting to become more talked about, which is, yeah, we've hustled and worked consistently way more than you could have ever dreamed of. And if you dreamed of it, you would probably consider it to be a nightmare. But what really kind of makes it fun is that I can't see myself doing anything else. It's baked into my DNA. Like if I had to go sit at a 9 to 5 job, I would probably go crazy.
I know. There's the other day I started recording at 6 a.m. I moved some people around and did some favors, so I try to only record 3 a day, but this day I recorded 5. I then had consulting, and the project ended up going to like 2:30 in the morning trying to prepare for this presentation. And I'm up the next day at 6 o'clock. And there's a lot of times where you want to give up. Or people are like, well, why don't you just do this? Or you need time for you or whatever. The truth is, this is my time. And and as an entrepreneur, if you don't feel that way, you need to find something else to do as an entrepreneur. I just encourage that, because you need to hustle, you need to put your time in, or find a way to take what you're doing and reinvent it or love it again or whatever. Believe me, I've fallen in and out of love with my businesses at times over 24 years. It's a weird thing that happens, but it does happen as an entrepreneur. And it is why we need to remain creative and also open to other partnerships or collaborations or building our businesses vertically and horizontally. Let's talk about how, if someone comes to you, let's argue restaurants or food or whatever, or any sort of model that might be similar. What is the difference in how, if I come to you versus coming to a stereotypical marketing company, how does it differ? I want to draw that line because I know the difference, but I want to sort of explain it to the audience from a perspective of the difference and how much farther the value of the dollar goes.
Sure. So dollar to dollar, we're actually not far off from where most people would think. especially for like baseline services, ads, SEO, websites we're actually probably underpriced on because we're working on volume through that. So, you get to play with those models a little bit differently, but really coming to an agency for their brain. We are in the business of our brains more than we are actually doing things, which is kind of weird because we still produce, we have tangibles that we do deliver, right? Whether that's an ad campaign, an email and SMS marketing strategy that actually we build out and implement. Same with, Facebook or Google ads or SEO or any of the, or, direct mail, which has been big for us this year. We, you really get a lot of different input. And going back to we've seen so much and we've been able to pull data and learning at a different level than where most agencies pull from. So the typical agency experience from what I've heard from other clients and kind of communicating, getting to know these people is I hired them. I didn't really hear from them for a while. They send me a report once a month. They go over maybe the data and the analytics, and that's about it. And then they're done. And I really don't know what I'm getting besides a report because a lot of what's actually happening is intangible. And that's what we call the set it and forget it model within an agency. And this is where putting your dollars where they matter comes into play. I would rather somebody spend the money if I was a restaurant or a food truck or a catering business or something in that mix. I would rather spend more on the agency fee than I would spend on the actual ad dollar spend itself. Because when you start to break through some of those levels, you're actually paying for their brain around growth more than you're paying them to become a doer. And that's really where you have to know yourself as a business owner or a restaurateur, as an entrepreneur, is where are my skill sets inside of my business? If you're not interested in words, I would hire a copywriter. If you're not interested in doing tech, I would hire somebody to build out my website and do all my reservation automations or all my confirmations, right? Like there are people that are out there to be the doers, and you can find good people to be able to do that. But ultimately, what most business owners lack is how all these pieces actually fit together. And that's where the real value of paying more for that agency up front, as opposed to paying it on the ad dollars that are coming through, really makes a difference. And there's a lot of people in my industry that say that they run marketing agencies, but they're just button pushers. They're just the doers. They don't know how all these pieces connect. They're not focused on your growth. They're not focused on your P&L with you, right? To be able to say, hey, this quarter we allocated X, Y, and Z. How would we best spend that to get, 15 or 20% extra than what we did last quarter, right? And going through more of those high level strategic problems, most agencies are just going to stick you with an account manager that has no idea how to do that. And what makes this really unique is that everybody on my leadership team has run a business at some point in time. So they understand what it means to have investors to answer to have family members that are those financial investors, and what that relationship would look like if the restaurant or business fell through. Or what does it look like if these campaigns do really well, but also not really hit the way that we need them to? Where's our pros and cons? And having those strategic meetings with clients consistently is what will really start to drive that forward success out of an agency. And that's what we pride ourselves on. We're not just the doers. We can do the work and we do the work with you, but you also need that person that has that strategic vision of a visionary and a CEO in your corner with you, and almost be that coach alongside as you're going through this process.
I love this because the thing is, businesses are hard to grow. They require fellowship. They require people to rely on, people to pick you up when you're down, people to give you advice to, people for you to be able to reach out and ask for help from. That's important as well. Let's talk about fellowship a little bit. It's important to you. You belong to groups, entrepreneur groups. You did Evolve. You do various things. You're heavily into networking and staying in communication with people. Talk to me about that, the importance of your business in that, the importance of your personal growth in that, because you do invest in it, your time especially. Why and how?
Yeah. So I have like I said, I have my in-industry mentors, and I consider everybody in those groups I'm a part of, whether in industry or out of industry, everybody in those groups has something to offer in the form of knowledge, experience, somebody in their Rolodex. And while I'm naturally very introverted, I very rarely, you're not going to see me be the life of the party unless I know I have to be. And the reason is that's just not my natural state. I'm much more of a one-on-one person, or, a small fireside chat. That's perfect for me. And in today's world where everybody is digitized and kind of removed, it actually kind of plays well for the introvert because I get to connect with people digitally and do Zoom calls like this or Google Meet calls, and we get to connect. I started my business, and within 6 months of starting my business, I joined Arate Syndicate. So I've not really known anything but high level entrepreneur groups from starting my business. And when you look at success and the clues that it leaves, every successful entrepreneur will tell you that if I wanted to go fast, I would have gone alone, but I wouldn't have made it very far. So in order to go further, I had to bring people along and be guided by people who were in front of me. So I attribute a lot of my success and where we are today because of the people and the networks that I know. It's that fellowship aspect, right? One of the guys that I met from Arte is going to be officiating my wedding. And so him and his wife are flying down. They're going to the Derby, which is in Lexington. We live in Cincinnati. They're at the Derby Friday and Saturday. They're driving up from the Derby on Sunday because he offered to officiate my wedding. And I would not have met that individual if I had not been in this group. And to this day, he's one of my closest friends. I can call him at any moment and we can talk about everything from business to aliens to crazy conspiracy theories about the government and how we're all getting screwed over and everything in between. But he's also that person that can keep me in check. And as entrepreneurs, we have this tendency, I think, to retreat into ourselves and think, oh my God, I'm the only person that's ever gone through this problem, or this problem is so hard. Well, no, it's not, right? There's nothing under the sun that's really new. We have to find the people that have gone through these and ask and be humble and say, man, I'm going through some shit. What did you do to get through this and pull your life back together or pull your business back together? How did you solve this culture problem? Hey, I'm thinking about attacking this problem from this angle. Have you tried this or did you do that? And I'm saying, oh yeah, man, I did both of those. This one worked really well. This one I think might have worked if I would have executed on it better. So maybe go ask this person about how they solved this one better because I know they went through the same thing and they tried this, right? That type of quote unquote insider information is the tools of the trade. It's how we pass information back and forth, whether that's contacts or deals or making each other wealthier in the process of building that fellowship. That's what's so cool about this industry is at the bottom, everybody's really protective of that information. But as you go up the ladder and you start to filter out all the scam artists and all the people that are just in it for the quick buck, and you start to be in the rooms with the people that are doing this for that higher level purpose, for that legacy, for leaving that impact, they are more than happy to invest into you that information and those skills because they want to see you win probably more than you want to see yourself win at times. And having that fellowship of people that have your back, even if they're not in the same room or even the same continent as you, is such a massive superpower that we don't tap into enough as entrepreneurs. But it's also how I really started to form the foundation of my business. First 6 months that I started, I did door knocking to get clients. And then once I had that initial foundation of, 7 or 10 clients that I was managing all on my own, that's when I joined into Arate and I was opened up to this perspective of holy crap, like there's a lot more out here and there's a lot better resources to be able to help feed me. And so I can continue to help feed and pour into other people. It's how I met Angela, who started Evolve. It's how I met Matt. It's how I met Josh Kosnick, Tom Caravella, people you've had on your show. All these superhumans in my eyes, because they truly are. They're superhumans. And I would not have had those relationships to where I called Angela last Tuesday because I had a small problem and she picked up the phone and was like, what's going on? How can I help? Right. And having just those people in your corner when you need them the most is way more valuable than whatever monthly membership cost is for that service.
No kidding, right? Look at this in a couple ways. Like there's a couple points in my life where fellowship is definitely the way I got through life. Okay, sports, I played soccer team. Okay, when I was initially an entrepreneur, I was 18 years old. Well, I was before that with fruits and vegetable stands. It's a whole other topic, and mowing lawns and fields and stuff. But 18 years old, you start, and sports and exercise, especially team sports. I found a lot of being able to grow in that way, as well as reading and whatever. As I exercise, I've always been a reader. I've always read, try to read something every day to grow myself. Very, very important skill. That's why 75 hard, it's such an anchoring thing. That's one. I think that as I grew, like I went through a period where I was about 12 years in, my father got sick. The businesses went, so I had family business, personal businesses, new marriage, and life kind of juggled funny. And not only I then had to, it was more than just exercise could handle. So then I had to add in a fellowship of a group of men that held me accountable. And then from there, I went to graduate school, and who gets an MBA as an entrepreneur? I know it's atypical, but yes, not only did I do it, but we had to have working experience at the same time in whatever we were doing, meaning like we had to hold our jobs. So we're talking like I had a vice president of CVS in my class and IBM, and here's just an entrepreneur, which that was the anomaly in the room, let me tell you, by far. But what happened is I had 139 people internationally. I had 34 people in my class, 33 to 34 people in my UNC cohort, but in our international cohort, 139 amongst 5 universities across the world, that we lived all together around the world. We were stuck together. We had to deal with each other. I had international teams I had to do projects with. I had domestic teams I had to do projects with. We were in the trenches together. Why am I saying this? Why is it important? Because we do it on an educational level to teach collaboration in business and working with each other. Yet then we go into the outside of the world and we find a business down the street that we think might be taking our customers and our food, and we want to attack them and tear them to the ground. Okay, like, hello, we see it work in sports. We see it work. Yes, is it kind of Justin, you're not getting it. The Broncos, and they're the Chiefs, and we're playing each other, and we each have our own teams. No, in industry, at the end of the day, every NFL team still collaborates to get those TV deals.
Yes, they do.
And it's the same in entrepreneur groups, and the same in the right ones. The right ones allow the collaboration and the relationships to build and unfold and have things and ways to allow it. Not short term. They are thinking long-term relationships, building collaborations, profit for both people involved, possibly all people. Why is Evolve a special event? We all met kind of through Arete. We all kind of came there. We got to know each other more. I think it's only 20 or 30 people that are allowed there, period, plus the coaches or the guides. I don't know. I don't remember what she calls them. But the important thing is that intimacy. We're now in the trenches, and the collaboration between businesses that probably wouldn't collaborate. Here's the other important thing that I've learned in 24 years. No corporation will ever treat an entrepreneurial business the same way a business is that's run by an entrepreneur. Even the ones that are badly run, still in general, better treat the entrepreneur if you build a relationship with them. Those relationships matter. The skin in the game is greater. The amount of time, we just talked about that 2x rule or 2.5x rule about time spent as an entrepreneur. The same is true for them, even if it's not going so well. A lot of people that aren't doing so well just haven't been given the right tools, don't have the right fellowship, maybe they need some educational help. But really what Alex said is the most important. The only way for me to change of getting so consumed by my business and my industry is getting out of it. That's why the other part that you said, having someone outside your industry as a mentor, is important. But in entrepreneur groups that are really, truly run, which I've been a part of a lot, and I've only seen one. Okay. One, on a level that truly coordinates people. Are people in Arete replicating that on an industry level that I think is very important in allowing collaborations in their industry that they've learned from those that have taught us? Yes, it's important. Will it ever be as great as that? I don't know. Sometimes the students outgrow the leader, but what I will say is it's so well done. It's so well structured. The education's so well done, and it allows us to work with each other. I have all of the people we just talked about on our podcast. It is probably my closest circle, plus some people outside of them spiritually that are part of my circle that I went through regeneration for 13 months through church that I've talked about. It's through Neuromarket in Texas, but they did it at Mission Hills here in Denver. It is important. I did it with 18 men. Again, another fellowship as I went through a transition in life. Arete, fellowship, transition in life. MBA, fellowship, transition in life. So I just wanted to emphasize that, because every time I've had to do a turning point in life, fellowship has been the only way. And if it's already there, it's a lot easier to navigate. Just saying, and think about it long term, not just transactional, not just a revolving door. Like, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to stay for the long term, grow myself, grow others. And then as you start investing each other just through words and knowledge, you invest each other financially or through business deals or things like that or other things, and the businesses both grow. So that was long-winded. My apologies.
You're good. Justin, I do have to bounce. I have another meeting that I've got to get to. Any final nuggets that I can help your audience with?
Yeah, did you just lay them out? Anything that you think might be important for them? And then just tell everyone where they can find you online, and I'll close this out as you get off.
Cool. If you want more information, more nuggets, we put out a monthly newsletter called the Neuro Insider. It's really cheap, really affordable. It's mailed directly to your door, and you essentially get brain dumped of all the information that's working, what's not working, strategies, tools. And it's really for that business owner that's sub $40,000 a month and looking to get there. And we go through all the tools, strategies, tips, tactics to help get you to that next level where you can actually have not just a side hustle, but a sustainable business to grow. So that's probably some of the deeper conversations, deeper information that you can get out of me. Facebook, Instagram at alex.vonderhaar, Vonderhaar. That's a great place to connect and find me as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. I'll let you go, and I'm going to close out here. Everyone in the audience, I thank you guys very much. Thank you for listening in. I love you guys. Please like, share, comment, anything you like on the episode. If you like what Alex said and you believe in what he's doing, you will find a lot more in the newsletter. You will get a lot more if you are that above $40,000 level. We didn't talk about marketing funnels. I'll ask Alex to come back on and we'll talk about marketing funnels. So marketing funnels can go on a different episode. So it is something, but in that we just talked about the above $40,000 is a good level that we talked about that's worth an investment. And when you get there are tools to get there. Use the newsletter. So thank you guys. I hope that gives you some action items from my perspective. I am going to subscribe to the newsletter. It's something I just talked to Alex about, learning about it. And now that I understand it on a greater level, I am curious. And I think it does work in a business model and a traditional business model, as well as bringing it into the way we do things. It is customizable and it is pretty cool. So thank you everyone for listening in. I love you guys, and we're out.